Should we begin?
I think so. Let's get started here. So, Annika, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Annika Eriksson, founder and CEO of Articheck. And this is Mackenzie Garrity, who is my co-founder and COO of Articheck. And we are pleased to be hosting this webinar today that is all about feedback and kind of talking about improvements and ideas about the system. And so thank you everyone for participating and giving us your valuable feedback.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So we've gotten so much feedback that actually great feedback, really helpful feedback and interesting feedback, new ideas for the future as well, that most of our webinar today is going to be composed of feedback from all of you. And it may be all of our webinar, right? Depending on how much of a kind of chat we get into about different topics. So what we're going to kind of do is essentially we took all of the feedback and organized it into different topics. Sometimes more than one person would submit some feedback about a particular subject area. So we'll be going through those in our order. And obviously, we really would love for you to participate in the chat. So we're going to be asking questions. We're going to have polls that we're going to run. And also a couple of you, we might bring in to talk a little bit more, time permitting about the feedback that you submitted. And there's like a little ability for you to talk. So that will be, really great. So what I'm going to do here is get us rolling. The first thing that came up, and actually is not just one person, but I would say at this point, dozens potentially who've brought this up over time, right? Which is an Android app. So I think this is something really interesting to think about. So Annika, up until now, why haven't we had an Android app? Why don't we just explain that first?
Sure. We have, I would say more than dozens, because we were actually planning on building an Android app, and we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't undertake something like that unless we had a lot of feeling from our market that that was really wanted, because we already operate on 2 code bases. So that is already challenging compared with operating on 1 code base. But we have 2 because we thought that it was really important to have an iOS app that could work offline, as well as a web app that would work on any device, computer, smartphone, tablet, etc. So we felt that was really important to our user base. And so we have these 2 code bases. Now we know that a lot of, in particular, shippers, but also some museums are keen on Android tablets. And so we did have it in our plan and our roadmap to build an Android app and have 3 code bases, which would have been, frankly, a massive headache to try and keep everything consistent between 3 code bases. And to have, that means, everyone, that every time you update any feature or do anything, you have to do it in 3 places. And you have to document how you do it in those 3 places. And you have to design a user interface for those 3 places as well. So it's really not ideal. And a lot of companies avoid this by having historically what's called a wrapper, which is what you probably have seen when you go onto sometimes an iOS app, and it doesn't really seem like an Apple app. It seems more like a website, and that is a wrapper. And we didn't really feel that that was a good enough native app experience for our users to do ourselves in order to keep things on 1 code base. But we found out last year about a wonderful new product, which is called Xamarin by Microsoft. And Xamarin allows you to have 1 code base where it actually translates your code into other native apps. So it's much more sophisticated than a simple wrapper situation. So we decided that we would do this thing, and we have hired developers, created a strategy, and we are gearing up. We've done a lot of planning around this, and we are actually about to kick off our Xamarin Articheck 3.0 project. So we're super excited about that. And when it is complete, and this is a long-term project because it's essentially a rewrite of our entire system and architecture. This is going to be, 18 months to 2 years away once we launch the project, which is going to be in the next couple of months. And at that point, we will have a snazzy Android app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as well as a couple other options too. So the first poll that I'm going to pop up on the screen is actually which systems you like to use Articheck on now. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that.
Good question.
So yeah, so now do you like to use Articheck on the web app most of the time, iOS most of the time, or definitely a mix of both? Yeah, so I'm definitely interested to see this because, I think in a lot of cases it is a mix of both, right? But it can completely depend.
Yeah, that's my guess is that that will be the top answer, but let's see. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Okay. All right. So let's see. It looks like we are at a mix of both. And so we have the web app is the people only using the web app is the lowest one. 31% of you use the iOS app. And then a mix of both is 46%. So almost half of you use a mix of both. And I'm sure, sometimes some of you will use mostly one and a little bit of the other, that type of thing. Okay, that's great to know, right? And this is really important to us because we want to make sure that obviously we are connecting the two. And so another thing about Articheck 3.0 is bringing our iOS and our web apps to what's called parity, right? So parity is this idea that essentially however your system functions on any type of operating system, whether it's a tablet, whether it's your computer, whether it's your phone, that it always has the same features available to you in it. And so I'm sure some of you super users who are in this meeting know that detail images aren't in the web app, right? So that's something that we've wanted to do for a long time. But again, like we've talked about, requires us building it from scratch again in the web app. So we have two code bases, right? So everything has to be built twice. So that's why, a big reason we're looking into Xamarin is we want to make sure that when we have a really new, helpful feature that in most cases has been suggested by you, that it's able to immediately go out to every single app option, right? And so that's something that we're going to be working on. In addition to, when we build this new Articheck 3.0, we're going to make sure that anything that doesn't exist in both apps now, besides like admin settings and things that are in the web app, will go into both, right, from the beginning. So you'll see those detail images, you'll see some of that snazzy user experience that you might like more in the iOS app. All of that is going to come across everywhere, which we're really excited about. So let's now talk about potential access. So I'm going to launch this poll. We have the ability to now do, okay, and you can choose multiple of these, by the way, Android, web, iOS, Windows apps, and then also Mac desktop apps. So I don't know if anyone has used those, but I think a lot of people who have Macs tend to like to use those. So let us know what you think would be helpful for you.
I'm going to guess iOS app is the winner. Let's see.
Your guess is correct. All right, iOS app has gotten 92% of you would like it in the iOS. Great, wonderful. I'm sure a lot of you are using it in the iOS, right? So we are going to have it there. Of course, we're not going to take that away from you at any point in time. The web app then comes next. Then we have one Android user in the audience. I think I can guess who it is. And then we also have 2 Windows, which is very interesting. So that's something that we're going to have to investigate. And then the Mac desktop app is 4 people who'd like to do that. So that's, I didn't know if anyone was going to click on that one. So that's definitely something that we should talk about, Annika. I think that's some good feedback.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to So we have, that's the kind of where can Articheck exist now and in the future question. So let's now talk about something that one of our galleries brought up, but we see this with anyone using CSV imports, which is concerns about duplicate reports, right? So essentially the issue at hand, right, is that you import a CSV and there's already that object existing in your Articheck account, and it creates another artifact for that object, right? So it starts a second record. Now, Annika, do you want to talk us through a little bit how we can prevent this from happening?
Sure. So we have this is a slightly complicated story, essentially, because there's multiple things at play here. First and foremost, for any of you that are not aware, there is a organization-wide setting in which you can choose to allow duplicates in your system or to not allow duplicates in your system. Why, you ask? Would anybody want duplicates in their system? Well, they do. Just trust us. It's been a thing that people have asked for, and so we have given the people what they want, and we have made it an optional setting in organization settings. So I believe that the default setting, I think when you sign up, the default setting should be to not allow duplicates, but I would have to double check that to know for sure. But in any case, anyone in this virtual room should check that they have the right things set for what they want their setting to be for their organization. And so when you're doing a CSV import, if that setting is on yes, allow duplicates, it will allow duplicates. If when you're doing a CSV import, that setting is on no, don't allow duplicates, it will not allow duplicates. However, there was a bug in the system that was allowing duplicates, even though it wasn't supposed to. So if some
via
of you
CSV import only.
Via the
right.
CSV import. And so if that happened to you in the past, we're sorry, but we found that problem and we fixed it. So that should not happen again. And also one other aspect of this that you may have noticed recently as an update in part of our fix of this problem, we created a banner which will alert you to the fact that you have entered a duplicate ID. So in this case, it's not with the CSV import, it's when you're actually just adding a new report manually. If you add an ID that already exists, you will see the banner, whether or not you are allowed in your organization to have duplicates. Why does it show whether or not you're allowed to have duplicates? Because of the offline functionality of the iOS app. So because you're able to work offline, the system can't always keep constant touch with the server to check if you're adding, if there's another record that already exists with this duplicate ID. And therefore, we had to, for technical reasons, show that warning regardless of whether or not your setting was there. So this is something which, again, we have had some feedback that people are a little bit confused by this, that they're worried that there's a warning and that something's wrong when actually, it might not be anything to worry about. And so, we're open to suggestions if you have different ideas about how to deal with this particular issue, but that is the solution that we have thus far.
Yeah, sometimes maybe it's just because it's red. If anyone has any feedback about that, if that's like,
maybe we should make it blue.
Huge warning, make it blue, yellow, something, stoplight colors. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's all very helpful. And we had a couple of you come to us about that. So hopefully that that solves it for you. By the way, if at any point you feel like we haven't really addressed something that's affecting your organization, your organization's use of Articheck directly, send us an email, right? At support. Oh, of course, I didn't spell it right. Let me fix that for you. Let me just delete that. You can send us an email at support, okay, and we'll make sure that someone actually walks you through what's going on in your particular organization's account.
Or investigates if there's a problem.
Investigate, yeah, exactly. They'll investigate for you, etc. Submit a ticket if needed. So the next item that we have here is the depth field. So the depth field, we know that in the past, right, even if you left it blank when you were filling in the report, on the other end, when you submitted, it would come out as a 0, right, which doesn't make sense because some things, you're not going to measure the depth of a piece of paper, something like that. So we realized that, and that no longer comes out as a 0. Just to double check, by the way, I had it tested before this webinar, so it definitely doesn't come out as a 0. So there's a couple things that you can do, right, to make sure that you're not experiencing that depth field as a 0 functionality. The first is to make sure your app is updated, right? We're probably going to say that a couple times in this particular webinar. And then the other is actually to regenerate your PDFs. All right. So this is something that not all of our customers realize that they can do. And so I think it's something very important to reiterate, which is that if you are working with a report that you did a long time ago, and there might have been something, even if it's something that, was like an old feature that was changed or anything like that. If you'll see that the PDF stays the same, right? It's not going to change. And that's because the PDF is generated at the moment that you create a version of a report. So if you have a report version that you created 2 years ago, it's going to reflect the way the system worked 2 years ago. All right. So what you need to do in that case is, if you go to the drop down for looking and finding your PDF, if you scroll to the bottom, there's a button that's called Regenerate PDFs. And if you click on that, it'll regenerate the PDFs with the most up-to-date format, and it will take that 0 away. So hopefully that should help anyone who's still finding those 0s anywhere. Okay. Okay, lag in load time. So Annika, do you want to just explain what this means, and then I can explain the
Sure.
what we've done?
So we have basically discovered that there is sometimes a extra load time in terms of uploading reports at kind of peak times, when lots of users are, maybe there's an art fair, or there's something where, tons of users are trying to upload reports at the same time. The reports might be heavy. And, we've seen that there's a bit of a delay in how long it takes to upload a report at these times. So
So what we've done, I'm very excited about this solution. So essentially we have upgraded our CPU. Okay, so our CPU is just a central processing unit. Okay, it's essentially the part of the computer that executes the interpretation and execution of instructions, right? So essentially we're telling our system to submit a report and save that in all the appropriate places and send you back the page of the artifact with the PDF and all of that, right? There's a lot of processes that happen the moment that you click submit. And we have our central processing unit essentially has been overtaxed at the points in time like art fairs, or honestly, I think that's probably been the biggest one, has been art fairs, with where galleries and shippers tend to be doing a lot of reports at the exact same time, and a lot of reports, right, all at once. And so recently, what I've worked on the developers on is we actually have upgraded our CPU by double. Okay, so that should not continue to be an issue. It's something that we obviously made an important decision about, because it is like an investment on our side, but we obviously find it very important that you're able to get your reports submitted as soon as you need to, especially during really important events like art fairs. So we heard you on that. And we hopefully fixed it. So if you're still having lags in load time, let us know, and we can investigate your particular situation further.
Yeah, the last time this was happening was Art Basel Miami. So that's when we took a deep dive and made the decision to upgrade the the CPU.
Yeah. Okay, so next one. Do you want to take this one, Annika?
Sure. So image order can be incorrect or random when uploading multiple images at once. So we looked into this because we concur that that's not ideal. So there's two parts to this. Again, Mackenzie likes to leave the complicated ones for me.
I'm so sorry. I'll take it. I'll take it. So in terms of
it's fine. It's fine. I'm just kidding. Okay. We found out that this is to do with your browser, number one. So your browser, you all use different browsers, and there are actually a lot of instances in which people come to us and say, the app isn't working. And in fact, we find out actually, it's a device issue, or it's a browser issue, or it's it's something that's actually outside of the app's control. And in the case of image order uploading with a web app, the browser cannot, reach into your computer and look at the ordering of your images based on chronological order or things like that. It doesn't have permission to. However, we have found that there is a solution, which is that we can do things by, is it date order, Mackenzie?
Name order.
Name order, sorry. So name order is possible. And we will do that. We have taken the decision to make that update. We've had several requests for that particular issue. And so we will be doing that. So everyone should be aware that what that means is that following that update, it will still not go into chronological order, I'm afraid, or like click order or anything like that. It will go by name order. So if you call your images, image 1, image 2, image 3, that order will be retained.
Yes, exactly. So, and, I think this dates back to, I remember having this issue with like Facebook, ages ago, where you would only have it on your browser and it didn't know the order of the images. And so you would need to drag and drop them manually, just like we have that function in our app. But then everyone started using it on their phone, right? And on the iOS, it can see the image order on your phone. And you can select, right? When you click on them, it says like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That type of thing. So it's just essentially different permission that's allowed. But yes, definitely we have that feedback. And just to kind of reiterate, or actually to explain, for Articheck 3.0, we are going to be, releasing this as a big project, and it is going to take some time, but you're going to, see the fruits of the labor along the way, because what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be releasing pieces of it before the actual launch of the entire thing. And then those pieces are going to be released through our existing web app and iOS app. And the reason for this is twofold. Yeah.
Can I just say that
yes,
this decision that we took is the more expensive and also more time consuming and more work for us route. Yeah. However, Mackenzie was just about to talk about the benefits of doing it that way.
Yeah, so there's a couple of benefits. One, some companies will essentially lock their existing software, not make any changes to it until the new version is ready. And we don't really want to do that. That's not really something that Articheck has ever done, right? We like to continue to make updates and improvements and listen to you and what you need and add that into the app. So we're going to continue to do that. And so part of the way that part of the reason we're having these meetings with you now, and we're also going to be sending out some surveys and things, is so that we can understand what's most important to you in terms of new features, and so that we can prioritize those in terms of what's going to come out first. So we'll definitely be we're taking your opinion into account. It's very important for us. I think the other piece about it, which just so that is just kind of about software company responsibility, is that if we were to build everything in a bubble, right, in the Articheck laboratories, and then we were to release it all at once, it would potentially be mayhem in terms of you having issues. And we do not want that. Condition reporting is something, as we know, that has to be done like on the fly. Sometimes you don't have access to that piece again, whatever it is. And so, what we're really trying to focus on, the reason we're going to be connecting our new backend to our old front end, is that we want to make sure that every piece of the machine behind Articheck is functioning before we actually move you over to the new front end, which is Xamarin.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's talk about search. Search is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Search.
Let's talk about search. So I am now going to be terrible and ask Cleo if you wouldn't mind popping in and chatting with us about search. Let me know in the chat if you'd be okay with that. If not, we'll talk about it for you. But you're one of the ones who brought it up.
You should maybe say what you want to ask her about it, which is like,
I will.
She
said sure.
To see in the search function. That's what we want to focus on.
Exactly. So you mentioned that sometimes you can't find what you're looking for, right? And so we'd like you to sort of tell us a little bit more about your experience and what you'd like to see. Okay. So let's see. Hi, Cleo. How are you?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Great.
Good. So I think part of our search problem may actually be solved by this duplicate report thing. I didn't realize that was something that we could turn off and on. So I think that will be a big help. But I reached out to my team for feedback because we use Articheck sort of across our department, and it was just passed on that sometimes reports can't be found when we feel like they should be there. And so I'm just checking my notes so that I can reflect this accurately. So someone fed back that we only get about a 50% hit rate when searching by object number for a specific object, even when we know that it's on there. And sometimes searching for specific words, like a descriptor, feels unreliable. So, and it kind of ends up just being a waste of time because we have to then go into the group to find specific reports. And so it's just a bit frustrating sometimes.
So something that a lot of people may not be aware of is that one of the lacking in parity situations we have currently with our two code bases is that the iOS app actually has a better search function than the web app. And the web app, and this is mainly because it's just I don't actually know. I can't actually tell you why.
It's easier to set up in the iOS code language.
I guess that's it. But yeah. So in the web app, you need, there's not the ability to do a partial string. So that means that when you're searching for an object ID number, you have to type in the entire number. And so that's one thing to be aware of when you're searching on the web app versus the iOS app. And again, because they're different, it's very understandable that people are confused. And, when they're searching in, they expect basically that if they can do a partial string on the iOS app, that they should be able to do that on the web app as well. So that might be one trick to kind of be aware of. But I will say that we are aware that our search functionality could use improvement, and we have taken the decision to upgrade that search functionality as well as bring parity to it with our Xamarin project. And so we're going to do a poll now, I think, about what kind of search functionality is important to you guys. But for example, one thing that I know that we definitely should do is have partial string searches available, in both places, for example. And I personally am excited to add the ability to search based on a lot more options. So for example, to be able to search by multiple options. So for example, to search something which you're looking at, well, and also to be able to search by damage type. So if you could search by everything that has cracks, that also is in a certain location, or that you assessed or examined within a certain date range, and to be able to cross-reference multiple search parameters, I think is gonna be neat. But we would love to hear from
so why don't we give everybody, we're going to actually create a poll on the fly. So if anybody who has something that they'd like to be able to search by, so if they want to be able to search by a certain field or search in a certain way in Articheck, then go ahead and pop that in the chat now. And we're actually going to load it into a poll and see what you're interested in overall. So let's see, Annika, the first one you mentioned was partial strings, right? That's kind of like a search term, right? But essentially it means like incomplete titles, incomplete IDs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or an artist, if you know
Okay.
that you have a bunch of Picassos, you can just put PIC and it'll come up.
Right, exactly. So Emma, let's definitely add that to the poll. So partial strings. Then let's see, Cleo's mentioned wanting to be able to search by material. That's a good one.
And lender, that's a good one.
And lender, yeah, definitely.
As well as title and ID, of course. And then Oscar wants to be able to search view
by
report
date.
by date and client.
Oh, great. That's good.
Yeah,
So
and also in terms of viewing reports, just as a side note, we're also planning on with the Xamarin project being able to order, things in your
make those columns. Yeah, make those columns sortable. So Oscar, you'd be able to, for example, search by client and then click on the date column, and it will either order it from newest to oldest or oldest to newest.
Exactly.
Yay. I'm glad that's exciting. It's exciting for us too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Over here. Yeah. And then let's see, we also said damage types, Emma. And yeah, just let me know when you're ready to, and I can put that poll up. So I think the other thing about search functionality that might be awesome, that might be kind of interesting about,
Sorry, can I just clarify, Oscar, are you talking about by date that the report was made, or by date as in the creation date of the object? I'm assuming the date the report was made, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. So date the report was made. Yeah, okay. Great. That makes sense. So something else to kind of bring in here, and that's going to actually change a lot of the way that Articheck works. So this is going to be nerding out for 30 seconds, which is that essentially right now our system is reading everything by those templates, right? So it sees a report as a holistic object, single object in our software. What we're going to be changing over to is fields. So the system's going to read everything in fields. Now that's going to change a number of things in terms of our architecture for the better, which we're excited about, that I won't get into because that's all quite detailed. But what it does allow us to do is things like this, right? Where instead of just being able to search by title and ID number, you're going to be able to search by a number of the different fields that are in that report, and be able to then take those out. And of course, I think an important thing to know about this too, right, is that this also allows for more analysis. So if you're going to be searching by, every painting that has a crack in it, you can then export that into a spreadsheet and use that and actually manipulate that data, right? Okay, so I'm going to launch this poll.
Yeah, and if you're doing collection management, then you'll be able to see, for example, like what is the most common damage type in your collection. for example.
Yes, that will be really helpful. So go ahead and select anything that you think would be helpful to you for the search fields. You can select as many as you'd like.
And actually, even if you're managing a gallery or an exhibition space, you can maybe tweak that. So in a gallery situation, you can look at what kinds of damages are most common for your inventory. And maybe you can try and address that and say, you know, if we do like a bunch of handling courses, maybe we can have fewer handling dents, because handling dents seem to be the most common issue that we have with our reports. Or,
Exactly.
you know, if you're managing an exhibition space, and you want to search by, you know, incidents that happen, you know, in your exhibition space, again, you can try and like pinpoint what those are and then, you know, come up with ways to address them. Hopefully it's not people
Definitely.
throwing soup on your stuff. I
Mhm.
don't know what you do about that.
So definitely, Annika, those partial strings are very popular. That's the top one. The date the report was created. So yes, I think those sortable columns are going to be definitely a game changer for people. We also have the location, which is good, and is something obviously, you know, we're developing even further. We've developed further more recently with GPS locations. You then also have material, and then damage type and lender. So those, I think most of those, if not all, are things that we're going to be incorporating. So yeah, that'll be great. Okay, so I think the next one that we'd like to get through, I think we'll talk about, let's see. I have so many in here. I just want to make sure that I'm
ability to take more than one image at a time using a live camera function. That one has been brought up multiple times, especially by galleries, to need to do things quickly. So we definitely will be incorporating that into our Xamarin project, because it's a really good opportunity for us to do things which are much more difficult for us to do now because of just how things were structured, not knowing when we started out that we would want this thing, right? And so sometimes things that you think of are easy to add to an existing tech stack and architecture, and sometimes they're just not. And it's, you know, it's just that when you started your architectural planning, didn't think of everything that you might think of in the future, unfortunately. Hindsight is 2020, but now that we've been around doing this for a long time, we have some ideas which, you know, we couldn't really do in the past realistically because of the amount of time it would take to achieve it. So it's a great opportunity for us to do some snazzy things, and being able to take images more, or multiple images more rapidly when capturing them probably falls into that category. So so yes, that's something we're definitely going to be doing.
Definitely. So the next one, I actually was going to bring them in as well, but they're not with us today to chat about this, but it's about how the archive works. And let's actually bring in Will's question here. Is it possible to introduce a select all or multiple images function to delete multiple items on both iOS and desktop? Yes. I mean,
or multiple.
So Will, let me just clarify if I'm getting this right. If I am looking at a report and I have 10 images, instead of pressing the X in the corner of them, you'd like to be able to select 8 of them and delete them at once. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
It's a good one.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's definitely something that we can add to the list. It's possible. We just have to make sure it's possible, right, within our infrastructure. But
yeah, but I think that sounds like a good idea, Will. Thank you.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, because I think sometimes, especially when you're working with reports with a lot of images, right, and then you have something that happens to that piece, like there's a dent in it, all of a sudden you have to delete half of them and retake them potentially if that's your workflow. So I can see how that would be helpful for a number of institutions. So thanks,
Yeah,
Will.
and while we're talking about workflows, can I just make a quick statement, just so that in terms of gaining people's understanding, that we do work with, you know, the whole ecosystem of people doing condition reporting. So that includes shippers, that includes private collections, that includes museums, that includes conservation studios, that includes independent conservators, that includes, you know, just a huge range, corporate
Galleries.
collections, galleries, and it's just
Art advisors.
art advisors. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people with a lot of different needs. We're just now bringing on a museum, hopefully, which is, you know, really archaeological in terms of their, you know, so there's also different kind of subject matter focuses, which sometimes necessitate different workflows. You know, we started working with people that are dealing with vehicles and microscopes and dinosaur
Wine.
bones and why, yeah, I mean,
Wine.
just there's a lot of different things, objects and workflows. And so the reason I mention this is that sometimes we get requests that are hyper specific to like one person's how they work. And obviously, with the best will in the world, unfortunately, we can't necessarily accommodate that. So we are in the situation where we do need kind of multiple people to generally to be interested in features, and in order for us to you know, realistically prioritize things. You know, the other part of that is that one of the things that we've had the feedback that people love the best about Articheck is simple design, keeping things simple. So, you know, we can't, if we go towards making things really complicated, then obviously there are other opportunity costs there, and we might piss off other people by adding too much of any one kind of thing. So we have to play a delicate balancing act here. So I guess what I'm just trying to explain all this so that you have some, you know, a little bit of just understanding for our position in terms of how we make these decisions around what things to go ahead with or not. And so one thing we will be doing following this webinar is sending around some surveys, as Mackenzie mentioned, and allowing people to upvote different features that we are interested in doing.
That you want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so we'll add that to the list, Will.
Yes.
And is the short answer.
But please do, you know, upvote stuff that you're interested in, and, you know, have your say. And that will really help us in terms of prioritizing things.
Yeah. Definitely. So I think actually, even just in this one webinar, we have something like 5 or 6 different types of institutions. By the way, just looking at the list. So yeah,
and
I
a little
think
bit
that's
like, oh, are they going to all want, you know, be coming from completely different places and not, you know, mix well as a group? But I think that's interesting that some things are common and universal across industries, and those are the things that we especially want to prioritize because it will be useful to the most amount of people.
Yes, definitely. And then the other thing I was going to say about that was, you know, I think being at Articheck is a really interesting experience because most of the art software is only for one sector of the industry, right? It's for galleries or it's for museums. And we're kind of like, just like invoices are to business, we are to the art world in terms of how many people use us. So, or create condition reports, period. How many different parts of the industry use us. So it's definitely a really interesting challenge and something that that we enjoy doing, but want to make sure obviously that we are providing the best solution to the most number of people. So Oscar, you have a good question and I'm going to answer it in the best way possible without calling you out. Okay, so just joking. So Oscar knows. So he has mentioned, could that be related to the lag time? Could it be related to multiple users on the same account trying to upload reports simultaneously as well? The first thing I will say is you actually are not supposed to have multiple users on the same account. And so,
Might not mean, he might mean the same organization account rather than.
right, so that's why I'm going to ask. I'm just going to clarify. Do you mean, and of course you can have on the same organization, right? So do you mean the same email address or the same company, the same
Or the same
institution?
login, essentially.
Or the same login?
Because if you mean the same login, then.
Now Oscar's not going to answer.
Well, so if you are talking about the same user login, we do not recommend doing that because that will
Yeah.
create technical issues. Because yes, when you are on the same user account and one person is uploading a report and then another person is uploading images to the same report or a different report, yes, that can cause not only time lags, but also technical issues, especially if it's
It
the
will
same
cause
report.
issues. Yeah.
Because remember, we have version control. So if we have version control and you're uploading at the same time images to the same report, especially, then that can really cause some issues. But even just in terms of uploading at the same time different reports on the same user account, yes, that can cause issues. So we definitely do not encourage that to be done. However, if you are talking about multiple users on the same organization account uploading things at the same time, I don't think that should cause an issue. Mackenzie, correct me if I'm wrong.
It should not, no. Large group of works. Oh, okay. Yes, that's why. Uploading photos at the same time into the same report. That's version control. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Oscar. I appreciate that. So that is version control. And so, yeah, that is an interesting thing to look at. We definitely like to talk to you more about that particular case and sort of how you're using the application in that way so that we can understand better how we might help. So we'll make sure that we reach out to you if that's all right, Oscar, so we can kind of find out more about that and talk to you about it specifically.
Yeah, and also like how often that would happen as well, for example.
Yeah, but I guess I can understand, there might be two people who are working around an enormous object taking pictures at the same time, something like that. Okay, so yeah, happens rarely. Okay.
I think the best way to deal with that in terms of us not having to do anything differently, if you don't mind, is especially if it happens rarely, is if you both take pictures, but you have a shared cloud shared image library that belongs to your organization, and then one person is uploading those images onto Articheck at the same, just one person is doing that part. And that would be a workaround with, the system not having to change how it works.
Definitely. Okay, so let's see here. Or, one person can be uploading them and then the other person's taking the photos and then uploads them afterwards. Yeah. There's, I think, a number of kind of things that you can do there. So we're running out of time a little bit. So I think I'm going to push to talking about, let's see, hold on, talking about, so essentially this was brought to us by Catherine. You're here with us today, Catherine Raymond. And what we'd like, if you'd like to join us to just explain what your idea is about how to, if you have a work that has, additional damage that happens over time, you are talking about finding a way to be able to see that damage as it develops over time, right? And make sure that you can update it properly over time. So would you be willing to join us? You can always say no, but otherwise I can read out your comment as well.
I don't see a reply. Maybe she's.
Okay. Yeah, maybe she's not on her screen. So, okay. So essentially Catherine brought to us, whenever you do new condition report of a painting that's already been examined, you have to make fresh photos, which is good, but then you have to do all the annotations, right? And then she was asking, is there a way to keep a diagram of annotations and then move it over to a new photo, right? So we talked about this actually in a lot of depth, just so that you know, Catherine, I think we spent like a fair amount of time trying to think about how this could work. And I think the biggest blocker that we came up against, right, was just that overview photo is never going to be identical in dimensions, right? So if you have, unless, you know, you have the same exact setup with the same exact professional camera at the same exact distance, and that's not likely because most of you are taking photos on your iPad or your iPhone, something like that. So we were like, you know what, that might not be possible, but just in terms of like, you know, actually when you pass it over, nothing's going to match up. But there's two things to know, right? One is that you do have your most commonly used, currently, if your most commonly used annotations at the bottom of your screen, if you're on the iOS, just as a handy little bit. But then we also were thinking about, okay, how do you show that damage over time in a way that's helpful and also, you know, potentially reduces your touch points. So Annika, do you want to talk about this? Because this is one of your big things.
Yeah, well, that's my big thing, but it's something that I have you know, it's something that I would have liked to have done a long time ago when I was first thinking about Articheck and, you know, designing it and wireframing it when I first had the idea for Articheck, like 12 years ago. One of the things that I thought would be really neat is if you could have like a slider. And actually my ex co-founder, who unfortunately had to leave us because of breast cancer, Jennifer, she also had this idea independently of me as well. So it's obviously something that, you know, has come up over the years, and we haven't managed to do it because it's a little bit difficult technically, and we didn't know how, you know, how many people it'd be useful for, and et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, we thought that it would be really neat if you could have a little slider where you could see how things changed over time with an object. And the way to do that, I think, would be if you have kind of a before and after photo, essentially, or a then and now photo, and then you could kind of slide between the two. And so that would be super cool. And actually, one of our partners has developed this thing. They are called Authentify. And we are currently exploring, you know, exactly what form our partnership would take. But I mentioned to them recently, especially after we had this conversation, that, you know, this was a thing that we were, you know, really interested in for our customer base, and maybe it would be a really nice way to introduce our customer base to them. And so we are exploring how we can kind of utilize this feature of theirs within Articheck.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're kind of coming to the
briefly mention that it would also be cool for doing comparison analysis of things like forensic images. So it's almost like having an overlay of UV and X-ray, or, you know, different things that would be again, cool and you know, visually interesting as well.
Definitely. So let's see. I think now that we're coming to the end here, what we just want to mention, right, is that this particular session is a precursor to a user conference, a full user conference we're going to have later this year. We'll, you know, work on obviously announcing that as soon as we can in terms of when it's going to be. But if you have anything that you thought that you would have liked us to talk about today, and you'd like to see, or maybe something you'd like to see in the user conference, like how to do something better, or if you'd like some feedback on something, then let us know. I think it's going to pop up actually when the webinar ends. So keep an eye on the box when we close this, and it will actually pop up and ask you if you have any feedback for that. And of course, we'll also reach out to you again, probably at some point to ask about that. So thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of your engagement. Yeah, all of your engagement today. And we'll see you soon. And if there's anything that you have additional questions about, please don't hesitate to reach out to our support email.
Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.